Good morning, everybody. My name is Seamus Hayes. I work at Genesis, and as a member of the AtlanTec committee, I'm delighted to be here today as your moderator for this event. So at AtlanTec 2021, we're back for our 7th year, and we're running a very packed event across 5 days with over 40 events and 60 plus speakers. And so we'd like all of you to participate, help us participate in the session today. On social media, you can follow us on Twitter at Atlantic Fest and use the hashtag AtlanTec. For today's session, we'd encourage you all to use the Q&A function to tell us why this topic is of interest to you. David's here, and we'd be delighted to take as many questions as you possibly can. So AtlanTec 2021 has been run as a free event this year. We are very grateful for all our sponsors and who've helped to make this festival a reality. And we really appreciate all of your continued support as we go through this. And hopefully we'll be back at a physical conference again next year. So again, just before I introduce David, I would like to remind you all that we'll be tracking all your questions throughout the presentation. You can use the Q&A function. So if you look in the bottom right-hand corner of your Cisco WebEx client, beside the chat, there's a button with a panel with 3 dots, and in there you can access the Q&A. And again, we'll take as many of the questions as we possibly can at the end of the session. So it is my great pleasure to introduce my colleague, David Renton. David is a Security and Compliance Project Manager for our Genesis Cloud application. And I guess like any SaaS application provider, protecting our customers' data is one of the primary elements of the service that we provide. So today, David is going to give you some insights into how Genesis delivered this security capabilities to the thousands of customers running on our platform. In addition to his role at Genesis, David has also been a prominent member of the Google Meetups, both in Galway and Athlone, and continues to work on that as well. So just before we get kicked off with David, we're going to maybe just open up and do a couple of quick questions, quick polls. So bear with us 1 second. So David, I'm going to hand it over to you maybe, and we're going to introduce and we're going to get some audience participation straight up with some questions.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Seamus. I really appreciate that lovely introduction. Let's start with the poll. I didn't know when to fit this in, but I did want to get your opinion on what you guys think of security engineers, because I think in the past a lot of security has been like the man in the trench coat at the end of the pipeline that kind of puts a stop to your work or makes you go back and do stuff at the end. Oh, I can see that jump quite quickly. That's nice. So I want to get your honest opinion, and I'm not asking you to tell tales in the company you're at now. I'm just your general perception of what security means to you, especially in our now pipelined world. So any and all interaction is greatly appreciated.
Yes, so for those of you who haven't used that function before, from your smartphone, just scan the QR code and that'll bring you up directly to Slido, where you can answer the question. Alternatively, you can point your browser to slido.com and enter in the code that we're showing here on screen, 840-3666.
While you guys are getting that done, I've got to thank you all for coming and watching this talk. It's a little strange for me. Normally, as Seamus said earlier, I organise some of the Google developer groups meetups in Athlone and in Galway. So I'm normally doing Seamus's job, and he's doing a fantastic job, by the way. It's not easy, and William, who's in the background, I must thank him. He's the man that does all the video work at the start. The guys are running a fantastic festival, and I hope all you guys are enjoying it. But there's I tell you, this would be like an Oscars acceptance speech if I was to thank everybody who's been involved in getting us to where we are today with the festival, and they're doing a fantastic job. And thank you all very, very much.
So we're kind of starting to see a pattern, I guess, David, in some of the responses. It's a fairly consistent pattern that it's.
That's what I'd like to see. So you guys don't hate me straight off. That's always going to be a good sign, you know. I'm not aren't afraid of the security guy coming in with the 3-ring binder. That's a reference I'll let you guys in on in a few minutes. It's in one of my slides.
Okay. Would you want to shoot the next one, David?
Yeah, please. So what do you see as one of the key initiatives to have as part of your security strategy? This is going to be a word cloud. Just getting a feel for what you guys feel is should be in security. Maybe stuff that isn't there that you wish was. So I'm not going to spoil the waters by saying something that I think, because I'll let you guys. Yeah, threat analysis. That's a good one. That's a tough one as well. I think we cover that a little bit later on with thanks to a lot of my colleagues. A lot of the work I did putting this slide deck together and thinking about this presentation was going to a lot of the other security professionals in Genesis around the world and going, hey, I want to give a really good explanation of how we keep data secure. And it's not just in one single point. It's not just one guy doing it or one team. It's a lot of teams doing stuff together that contributes to it. So I had to ask a lot of different people for their expertise, and some stuff just isn't my wheelhouse. So I had to say, oh, okay, this is your area. Can you tell me one thing that's like really interesting that the guys coming to the talk would like to hear about or would be interesting to them? So I hope you're suitably entertained. If we were in person now, I'd be doing the "Are you not entertained?" bit up on stage and looking for a reaction, but I can't see you guys, so that's unfortunate. I can't wait to get back to in-person events. I really miss it, that interaction and being able to desk stop people. I know you guys hate that. Well, most people do, but sometimes it's just the best way of getting work done, isn't it?
So we're starting to see a couple of one pattern definitely around governance, but lots of
Yeah,
other interesting pieces there, I guess, David, that you would some of these you'll be covering during your talk.
yeah. There's a lot in there. I'm wondering, is there some Genesis engineers on here that are just ruining my talk? I think some of my colleagues may be on watching this. Watch out for those dodgy questions coming in. The really really hard ones that are going to try and catch me out on.
All right, so I'll let you think about that as you go into your presentation, David. So I'm going to stop sharing here, and I'll hand the ball over to you for
Thanks,
your
James.
presentation.
Appreciate it. Everybody, I'm going to share screen if I can. You
There you go. You should have control now.
share screen. Here we go. I hope you guys can share can see my screen. I only have a little tiny box in the corner now that says who's
You're all
there.
good.
So
You're all good.
oh, brilliant. So I'm essentially talking to a black box. It's a little odd, but we'll get on with it. This is another reason why I miss the in-person events. So we shall kick on, and please forgive my meandering down different paths as we go through this discussion. As I can't see your faces, I don't know if you're getting bored or if you're excited, but we'll get going. So I did want to bring in, sorry, this little box is in my way. I'm wondering if I can get rid of it. Here we go. So these are our Genesis values as a company. Now, I think every presentation is like a story. It's got a beginning, middle, and end. So this is one of the important plot things you're going to need to know for later on. So that's why it's in here. So embrace empathy, fly information, and go big. These are our Genesis values. They've probably been covered by other Genesis speakers throughout the week, or there will be if you haven't seen any other Genesis talks. But they are really important to the company, and they're not just a platitude, and they're nice words to be used as promotion. It means stuff in development too. So we also have our culture manifesto. This is what we believe when we're planning work. Number one is security. Two, stability. Three, features. Security and stability are 50% of the work time spent, when we're doing planning or when we're prioritizing stuff, and the other 50% is on features. So security and stability are job zero. So that's the first stuff that has to get done. Now, there's a very good reason for that. So a lot of the stuff I'm going to be talking about is going to edge into kind of the DevOps space. So I thought if everybody hasn't, there's two books. I'm going to just go quickly through these real quick now, and just so everybody's on the same page. So there's three ways. First way, emphasis on the performance of the entire system, not just a single piece of it. All right, we've got to get the whole system working together. The second way, create left to right feedback loops. We want to shorten the feedback loops. We want to know about problems earlier in the development process. So if there's going to be a security problem, we want to know it at the developer stage, not at the testing, not at the system test phase. When we're all the way through and we're already into a pipeline, we can fix it much quicker and easier. If we're testing locally. The third way is about creating a culture, and this is really, really important. A culture that fosters two things: continual experimentation, taking risks, learning from failure, and that's a big one, learning from failure. because, and I touch on this again later on, there's going to be a talk at 3 p.m. on psychological safety by Laura Delizoni. I'm really sorry if I've butchered her name, but you guys should, it doesn't look like one of those talks you should go to, but you really, really should. And then you should make your bosses and everybody else go see it too. It's really important because it enables you to learn from failure. And understanding that repetition and practice is the prerequisite to mastery, which is where we're all going. I mean, no one's in a job. We want to feel like we're contributing, making a contribution to the world in general, really. But there's also, and this is just my outtakes from these two books. The Unicorn Project is again another book in the DevOps space. So there's the 5 ideals: locality and simplicity. Like I said, you want to do stuff simply on the developer machine instead of having to wait till it gets into a pipeline. Focus, flow, and joy. I mean, it should be a joy. You should love going into work. That you've chosen this career. You studied hard to get here. You bust yourself to get to where you are now. Hopefully you're with a great team and you want to enjoy it. So let's not ruin that by putting stuff in your way. Improvement of daily work is around the same lines. We want to go into work going, I know what I can do today to make tomorrow just a small bit better. And if everybody does that, we're really into a positive feedback loop there. So psychological safety is the 4th ideal. We mentioned that just a second ago, and I'll mention it again. Laura Delazone's talk, 3 p.m. Psychological safety, really important. Go to it. You will not be disappointed. 5th ideal, customer focus. Seems a little weird. I know we all want customers, but when we look at HR, when we look at systems in companies from a really, really high level, how much effort are we putting into stuff that our customers don't pay us for? Like, if you have a world-class HR system, but you sell cars, you know, you're not getting paid for that. You're better off outsourcing it and focus on what your customers pay you for. Yeah, that's again going back to our ideals of security, stability, features. Our customers, that's our business. So just skipping on here. Now, these are the items I want to cover in a broad scope. All right. So what is security? Get everybody on the same page. We'll move into corporate cloud, product, people, and then prove it at the end. All right. Then we might have a couple of minutes left for questions and maybe just a little, if you'll indulge me, a little personal story about my time in Genesis. So, what is security? Let's get on the same page. What does it mean to you? I mean, there's your job security, financial security, your patents, ways of working. These are important to protect your information, your property, identity. These are all, can mean security to different people. We're here to talk about information security primarily. And the security, it's a huge topic at the moment with the pipeline in the States. Those poor devils are having an awful hard time. And even our own HSE, the health service, most recently are they're struggling, and I think anything we can do to help get through that situation is gonna be of great benefit. So earlier on, we spoke about the Phoenix Project. It was the second or the first book that I had up on the screen. There was this little gentleman here, John Pesci. I know what that reminds me of, but I won't ruin it on you. But he was known at the start of the book for just kind of arriving with his 3-ring binder, and he, bless him, he thought he was doing the right stuff because he was. One of his quotes from the book is, "It's his job to keep the directors out of orange jumpsuits, and compliance is not an option." But he was doing stuff he thought was right. Like he was encrypting an entire database without telling anybody else, and then the whole system had failed because nothing could read data. And his reasoning was that it was compliance. I had to encrypt it, but it wasn't done in any kind of way that was communicated with anybody else. So communication is a big part. But if you've read the book, you'll know the story. And people stopped inviting him to meetings, and they hated to see him coming. So when they cut out the security section, I know it's over dramatized for the book. When they cut out that security section, they were just focusing on getting releases done with features because that's what customers wanted. But then it was making a mess of everything else. So poor old John got the raw end of the stick on that one. But he did redeem himself. So we'll get into that a little later on. So this is how things look from a Genesis point of view. So we have a shared responsibility model. Now this slide is stolen from Jared Sexton, our security architect. Great guy, helped me out a lot. Continues to help me out a lot. I think he might have actually stolen it from Amazon, but you know, that's all's fair in presentations and war, I suppose. So what happens is we're responsible for stuff in the cloud, and AWS is responsible for the cloud. But our customers also have a level of responsibility as well of what information they put in there, because we do allow customers to name stuff like so they if they name stuff with someone's first name last name and then go, oh well, that's a privacy thing. Well, you named it that. There's nothing we can do. We can tell you it's not a good idea, but if you do it, it's going to be tough to get around that. So there is a shared responsibility set out there and is set out to all of our customers. And I think this is a general model for cloud-based software SaaS services. So that's is everybody with me? Has everybody got me so far? A little quick yes in the chat. Yes, we got D Miller. Thank you. Yeah, okay, everybody's with me so far. Thank you very much, guys. Okay, so corporate. Here we go. Jared Flynn. Hello, Jared. Thanks for coming along. I hope no hard questions from you later on. I'm expecting it. Okay, so day one in a brand new company, you walk in through the door. So someone had to buzz you in, I imagine, because you don't have a badge. They give you your new machine, and that comes preset with a lot of security on it. So the first security you're going to meet when you walk in the door is corporate security, because you're going to need to get your badge to get in. You're going to get set up on all your internal systems. Your machine will have antivirus malware and will have different agents on there to allow you to connect to different VPNs. Depending on the company you're with, it's going to be a little different, but more or less in the same vein. This is a picture of my first day in Genesis. And I'll tell you a little story about that at the end if we have time. So this is one of the areas where it's not my wheelhouse, so I had to go asking. So I asked David Avoshkin. He's over in the UK. He's on Stephen Wolford's team. Great guys, and they do all of our corporate security. I call on them often for various bits of information. And I said, "Well, can you tell me something about the corporate side that's interesting that maybe people wouldn't know or I could talk about?" And they said, "Okay, here's one thing. We try and be as open with all of our developers as possible, and we try and let people work the way they want to work, which means they're going to download different IDEs. They want to have different plugins. They want to. I mean, we have one guy in the SecDev team. He actually codes in VI. I think he's a crazy person, but he makes us look really, really cool. Imagine writing your normal work in VI. I couldn't do it, but he's an absolute legend. Dylan, if you're listening, you're a fantastic guy. I wouldn't want to do it, but you're a fantastic guy. But all these different IDEs and plugins and stuff have to be tracked. So how does corporate manage across both Windows, Mac, Linux? How do they know what's on machines and keep them safe? So that's a big, big challenge, to be as lax as possible with different people who want to use different productivity tools and also make sure that everything is secure. So they use a certain tool called Exonius, free plug for them, I suppose. And have been having great success with it. That once they get the agent onto the machine, when it's delivered to day one, like my picture here on my day one, that they know about that machine and they can kind of see what's on it, what's been installed, and how they can keep it safe, make sure everything's up to date. So I thought that was quite interesting that they have this tool that they can search by who has X installed, and they can bring up a list like a big database. I thought that was quite cool. Just tells you, don't be putting any of your normal stuff, your personal stuff, onto your work computer. It's not yours. So that was my little story about corporate. So we'll go on to cloud. Now there's a little cartoon here. I don't know if you've seen this one, where the little dinosaur is slagging the little dog about him putting his website up and where's he going to host it from, his hut. I know it's a little sad, but I think you got the point across that the little dog just goes, no, it's in the cloud, sure, everything's secure. And I thought, really, do people think that? I'm not sure anybody in this meeting would have known, would have assumed that. I mean, yes, the cloud has secure, as we discussed earlier, in the shared responsibility model, that AWS is responsible for the cloud, but we're responsible for what we put in there. So this is kind of a high level um, diagram of what we expect from AWS. So this is the AWS side of stuff. Now, there is some configuration from ourselves in that. So all our stuff is stored as infrastructure as code. So we control that, and all that is checked and rechecked. And well, there's a little secret sauce in there that we're not allowed to talk about, but that's yeah, everything's infrastructure as code and is pushed up there. We have identity and access management. Who has access to what and to what level, and can they access it at all? Security groups, VPCs, your NACL, routing tables. I'm not going to read the slide to you. This is just how AWS looks. So we also have mutable images. So when we build our images, they cannot be changed. They can't be added to or anything like that. It's sent up to the cloud deployed, and it can't be changed once the image is up there. Continuous vulnerability. So we scan over 700, and I think it's more than that now. This is, I think, a little older slide. We scan more, about 700 images a day, and this is just on the Amazon side. So we asked them, is there any images up there that we don't know about just yet? We get that image, move it into a different area, spin it up, run tests on it, and it's all done completely automated. There's just a report pushed down the pipe to a ticket where it can be investigated or passed by some of the engineers. So it's a lot of scans every day. So we're really taking care of we trust AWS, but we verify AWS, if you know what I mean. So this is how we're looking on the code side. So I'd say there's a lot of developers. Are there a lot of developers on the call? Little thumbs up if you're development side peoples. One. Not all, just one. Oh no, hey Emma, Rad's nice one. All the dev guys, this kind of would look familiar at this first little bit. So you check in your code once it gets into Git. I don't know, you probably run some automated tests in Jenkins or whatever CI/CD tooling you use. But this is a picture for main branch. So after you've been through code review, and there's a lot of stuff that happens before it gets to main branch. This is kind of our route of how things get into production. So you start off getting deployed into dev. This is just our build, Jenkins build, then pushed up to dev, into test, and then into prod stage. I don't think is there anymore. So we have this is the AWS vulnerability scouting. So that's internal to them. Again, shared responsibility model. But as we get out there, we've built in feature toggles. So just because something's out there doesn't mean it's going to be available for our customers to use just yet. We have it up there and out and in the real world, just to get everything out into the real world in prod, make sure everything's working before we turn the feature toggle on. And that's all internal without having to go into AWS. It's in our internal tooling. Again, one of the secret sauce stuff we can't really talk about. So into the feature toggles, and then it gets turned on once everything is nice and stable. Secure, stable feature. That's how we go. We're going back to those values again. So moving security left, you'll know most of these. So we've got static code analysis with Codacy, peer approval. We had a little chat about that. Dilbert, yeah, where you guys as a team go through the code and go, and it's blameless. You're not trying to pick on someone's code. Well, at least that's the way it should be. You're just trying to make the product better. Hey, if we did this a better way. It's also a great way for the junior guys to come in and do code review on the more senior guys and see how everything's running together. Also, the junior guys have their code kind of rechecked by the more senior guys, and also come together as a team when new stuff is being built and get. Because when some teams fight over some of the stories that come in. I'm sure you guys do the same. He gets, oh, that looks like a really cool job. I want to get that one. But there's, 7 of you on the team. and there's only the one story, so it's a good way to catch up and see what's coming in on that. Now we use Snick for our dependency checks. That's in our pipeline now. It can be run, like we mentioned, on the in the three ways, moving stuff security to the left. So we can run it locally within the IDE or through the command line. Then it's also run in the pipeline. Pipeline then feeds into, it's checked before it gets any further that has run and is clean, or there's minimal risk. Then standards. Now, when everybody got standards, is it tabs and spaces you're talking about? Sometimes, to be honest. But I mean, if you set out your standards, most IDEs can have them just programmed in. You're a lot of user developers, but for those of you who aren't, you can just set those standards. So when the code review from the peer approval kicks in, everything kind of looks the same. So you know where to find things. And that's important because I went to a talk that was entitled "Code Like You're Going to Have to Read This When You're Hungover." And I thought that was a brilliant way of doing it, because I mean, you'd think of some really clever way of doing something today. In 3 weeks' time, 4 different stories down the road, you have to go back to this piece of code you've expertly written and try and trace where the hell you were doing or what genius moment you were having. But that's that was just one of the tips I took from that. And also return early. If you return early, it's easier to go through debug and write tests. Write testable code as well. It's easier, and gets your security bumped up even more. So continuous monitoring. Once stuff gets out, all right, once you've been through your build and it's out into the world, and you need to keep an eye on it. Make sure everything is running as it should. Make sure there's no leaks. Make sure there's nothing weird happening up there, because we all know most cyber attacks now are all automated. It's not some guy in a hoodie with an anonymous mask on sitting on his computer. Well, it probably was at some point, but he's written a program to go off and do stuff automatically, and it's just going to keep going and going and going until it finds an answer. So what we're monitoring is retrievals, package installs, network utilities, suspicious activities. So this is another area that's very specialized within Genesis. There's a whole team that deals with this. So these are some of the tools we use now. I'm just going to say it again. I know it's on the screen. These graphs are not Genesis graphs. They are just images from the internet, but they're representative of what the guys would be looking at. Hope that's okay. Is that okay with everyone? A little thumbs up if you're still with me. Yeah, okay, lovely. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Fantastic. So Sumo Logic, that's where everything gets collated and it's searchable. It has its own query language. We have some experts in here in Genesis that I can't begin to touch. Jared, again, being one of them. I know I've mentioned him twice, but he's a special guy. He deserves it. PagerDuty. We have on-call SecOps guys, on-call 24/7, 365, ready to respond to events. And again, this is an area that I'm not in all the time. I talk to these guys most days when we're organizing work, and I'm usually looking for help off them, to be honest, to fix some issue or to help someone else. And I said, "Well, can you tell me something that's that's interesting for in this area?" And I got a quick one-liner, and he said, "Look, I'll tell you something. If you enter your password wrong twice, let's say you've just left caps lock on by accident, that's going to come up as an event. So because the password, you couldn't log in. So every event is not an incident, but every incident is an event. And being able to know the difference, like, was it you typing in your password incorrectly, or fat fingering, or leaving caps lock on, or is it a brute force attack, someone trying to break into the system? How to differentiate between those things, and having the knowledge to be able to backtrack through the logs quickly and see what's going on is a talent. I think it's one that's just learnt over time. Like we said, we were under the repetition and practice is the prerequisite to mastery. These guys are masters in their field. They've seen everything, well, nearly everything, and some of the stuff. If all you guys could sign an NDA, come in and have a look at this team work, and you'd be blown away with the talent. Now, I'm sorry for the blinding slide. This was done late last night, but I did want to bring this stuff in. I probably could have done a better job on design. But the fun stuff, penetration testing. I saw that in our cloud earlier on today that we're penetration testing is important. You're right, it is, and it's important to us too. Because if the bad guys are trying to get in, maybe we should try and replicate how they're trying to do it, and how do we go around that? What's the way we can do this? So um, we have third party penetration tests. That's once annually that we pay someone else to go. Here's an instance of Genesis Cloud. Go at it. Tell us what you can do or what you can't do. We have internal pen tests now. They focus on new features only, and then we have private bug bounties that run different times every year. But they're really interesting to find out what guys who do this for a living can find or can access that they're not supposed to access. And then we have customer penetration tests. Some of our customers may come back and say, oh, we want to run a test on the system, or we want you to help us run a test on your systems to see what we can get out of it. It's really interesting. It's not something we can obviously go into, but if you guys ever get a chance to go to any of the private bug bounties that are out there, or there's some penetration testing sites that you can go to that will show you some small little bits and pieces of how things are done, it's well worth it, and it's even for your own education. I'd highly recommend it. So, people are the heart of our business. What's that saying? If you look after your employees, they'll look after your customers. That's true of everywhere. Does everyone agree with that? Little thumbs up if you agree with that. Companies look after the employees look after the customers. That's right. Yeah, you're right. Now you're probably wondering why this picture is in front of you. Does anybody recognize any of these people? Thumbs up if you recognize these people. Sean, yeah, you know who it is? Anybody else recognize anybody in this picture? This picture is the season 1 cast of Saturday Night Live. Now, that's a bit of an odd one to have in a security presentation, but I'll tell you why it's here. Google did a study to see what high-performing teams looked like. It was understood or thought before this study was undertaken that, if you get the right people together, they'll be able to do great things. What turned out from that study, it was Project Aerosol, I think was the name of it, if you wish to look it up after the talk. And there's probably a more not safe for work version of the story about Saturday Night Live that I'm going to tell you, that if you're interested in, you'll definitely find it if you go looking for it. But in season 1, I mean, these Saturday Night Live was being run, and all these guys had to come up with sketches. Now, a lot of these guys were kind of misbehaving, doing crazy stuff. They were having regular intimate relations with each other within a month, and it was just, to look at it from the outside, you go, this could never work. And to make it worse, these guys, when they pitch a sketch, it means someone else's sketch has to get removed, because they only have 7 days to come up with a sketch. And then they run the sketch, or 6 days to come up with the sketch. They run the sketch on Saturday night, and then they have the Sunday off, and then they start it all over again the next week. But as we all know at this point, that's not only was season 1 a massive success, it continues to be a high-performing comedy special. It's still running today. And it turns out in the study in Project Aerosol, and this again will lead back to Laura Delazone's talk at 3 p.m. today on psychological safety, that it's not so much the people you put in the team, but it's how they communicate. So if you have that culture in there, and even Saturday Night Live, they've taken in writers to put out writers, and they've swapped nearly all the writers at some point, and it stayed high performing because it was just the way. To quote the Mandalorian, this is the way. If you build it, they will come. I mean, if you have the structures in place, if you have the teams, if you tell teams, you're okay to make mistakes. Go learn from them. Tell everybody about the mistakes that you've made so they don't make them. It's going to be better for security. It's going to be better for your productivity, your velocity. And for your team, you will become a higher performing team by having that psychological safety, by embracing your principles, look at your DevOps principles, and keep things moving in a positive manner. Um, like we said, 50% for security stability, 50% on features. Do what your customers are going to pay you for. So prove it. Compliance is hard. All right. I mean, I think most of us have done some sort of professional qualification. This is an image for the Michelin stars restaurant. So if you go to a restaurant with your significant other and you really want to, it's an important evening and you want to make sure that you have the best time possible, you go to somewhere with a Michelin star because you know you're going to have a great evening with a great meal. You didn't have to go and check their suppliers, the food, the cleanliness of the kitchen, because it had that stamp of approval from a trusted entity. You know what you're getting. And it's the same for us as engineers, for all you coders that we know are on the call today. That when you go and you do your AWS exam, your GCP exams, or your Security Plus training, whatever it is you're going to do, you know you're at. We don't need to test every single piece of your knowledge. We know from the stamp of approval that you've been given that you're of a standard. So Genesis goes through the same thing, as do a lot of companies. So our customers don't need to test every single piece. They can trust that we are of compliance in certain areas. And some of the big ones, well, hold on. First of all, let's go back to John. We spoke about John earlier on in the meeting. So at the end of it, coming towards, well, midpoint in the book, as things are turning around for the Phoenix project, he rebuilt his program from scratch based upon his new understanding of precisely where he's relying on controls. That dictates what matters. That's going back to what our customers are paying for in the principles. It's like having a magic set of glasses. I can differentiate what controls are really important again, and what, doesn't matter. Like if you don't take credit card details, do you need a PCI stamp? I don't think so. So that was a big moment for John in the book, and if you have read it or will read it, you'll see yourself. Poor John redeems himself and becomes a full part of the team, and it's a big yay moment. Go on, John. So some of the compliances that you need to have, or what we need to have, are Hipaa. That's for medical stuff. Information, as we know, it's a really hot button topic with our own HSE um, getting hacked, and people's information potentially getting out there. Last I heard was that it wasn't confirmed. There was 3 heavily redacted patient files put up on some website, but it wasn't confirmed that they were even real. So we're not entirely sure what's going on. Have all you guys been following that story? Quick thumbs up if you've been following that story online. Yeah, it's troubling because I mean I think all of us have been to a doctor at some point or into the hospital. Or, I mean, we're all born in one, but to have that information out there, I mean, what does that entail? Does that entail your PPS number, your name, address, everything? I mean, what can you go and get with that information if it was sold in the black market? Could they apply for a passport in your name for a different country? I don't know. Could they open bank accounts? There's a lot that's it's just scary. I hope it's resolved soon. So PCI, like we just mentioned, PCI is for taking card details. I mean, you can't have someone's credit card details out and floating around. I mean, there has to be trust there. I mean, since this pandemic has started, a lot of our shopping, bless us, when we can't get into pennies, you have to do everything online. Amazon made a fortune out of us. Um, we have to trust that when we put in our card details to pay for stuff, that it wasn't being stored somewhere, or someone wasn't just writing it down and going, "Yeah, I'll put that through later because the system crashed." Because that's crazy, But some people don't think, because they haven't been through the training, that's that could be acceptable, because they're trying to do their best for people. That's why we have, and to go back to our people, I mean, we have annual training that we can't, our devs can't even get in at systems without completing a load of training, and it's annual, and it's part of our compliance. And that's why I didn't mention it during the team section, because it is part of compliance, and we do it so that we know every year, annually, within 365 days, that all of our employees have been through PCI DSS, they've done their Hipaa training, we've done cloud security, we've done, like, they have been bored to tears doing it, bless them. But it's important, because anything that's new can be brought up or can be added to these lessons, so we know for a fact, and all our customers know, that all of our employees have done this. Yeah, keeping credit card details it seems an obvious one, but when your focus is to help the customer get their product, and someone says, "Oh, I'll write the systems down, I'll write the credit card details down," you can see how they're trying to rationalize that they want to help that customer. So that training is really important. Compliance. This is some of the compliances we have as Genesis. SOC 2, HIPAA, PCI DSS, the ISO 27Ks. High trust, that's a really hard one, and we are so proud of it right now. So that took a lot of work from Lila Bednar and her team, who have been, again, great for helping out even in this project, putting this together. Thank you so much. Privacy, that's another big one. We have Mr. Schrems, who's taking over. If people don't know who Mr. Schrems is, he's an Austrian gentleman who has decided that he didn't like American, because in America they have different systems that they can the FBI and such can look at all the internet traffic, and that's their way. But Mr. Schrems says, no, you can't. We don't want you looking at our stuff. That's not how we roll. So he went to the EU commissioners and said, I don't want American guys looking in at any, not just American guys, any other untrusted agencies looking at our personal data. And they went, you're right, Mr. Schrems, we'll put a law into effect. Now, no personal data can be stored or processed in any untrusted country. If we just use the States as an example for this, not that I'm only blaming the States, but to be fair, they're probably the most notable ones that look at personal data. We don't want any of our US clients, our US based resources, looking at EU data. So that means we can't have a customer care org over in the States looking at the data for an org here in Ireland or in France, Germany, anywhere. This changes stuff a lot, and will change a lot of stuff for a lot of companies. Where if you have the follow the sun customer care, or even the DevOps guys or the SecOps guys, I said they were 24/7 as well. Model where they can see everything that's coming up and able to have different sites around the globe. So that's going to be a tough one. It's still ongoing, but it also falls under the security banner. So we've kind of reached the end, and I wanted to just go back to the start where we said that Genesis tries to, well, our core values are empathy, which is one, fly in formation, and go big. And they mean it. And from my own personal experience, when I first joined Genesis, it was the first day of lockdown. So I joined, and then I was told you got to go work from home. So I just picked up the new laptop, the one that you saw on the corporate first slide, with the nice picture of all the nice swag that I'd received. I had to pack up my swag and set up my machine and head home, and that was it. I've been working remotely ever since. And those of you that we've met in person in the developers groups or outside of that, know I like to be able to interact with people. I'm a people type of person. So it was a big change. Then my wife's brother died. Just like 2 weeks into my employment, I was like, I have to take some time off, and I hadn't yet proved to my team that I'm a good guy, and I'm good, and please, I'm still on probation. A little bit of apprehension. I know, Sean, yeah, it was tough going. But what was even tougher, I just got through that, was kind of trying to prove myself in the new team and trying to get used to the whole system. It takes a while to get a bigger view of the system, see where you fit into it and how you can contribute. Then my own son died suddenly 6 months later. So I had to go back to my team and say, hey, look, this awful thing has happened and I don't know what to do now. And this is where the empathy kicked in. And it's not just for our customers, it's for our employees and our teammates, and where everyone pulls together. We fly in formation and they go big, and they did for me at that time. Dave, don't worry about it. We've got your work covered. We know who can cover each one of your stories that are on your board. We've got this. And they did get it. And they cared about me at a time where I wasn't sure. I didn't feel like I had proved myself to my new team at that point. It was only 7 months in the door. You're still getting used to everything. So I can tell you from a first-hand perspective that when Genesis said they're going to be empathetical to everybody, customers, their staff, teams, everything, fly in formation, and they're going to go big, they did it for me. They are doing it for their customers. They are keeping your data safe. We are doing absolutely everything focused. The fifth ideal, customer focus. What are our customers going to pay us for? They are paying us for. What are security, stability, features? I'd like to take any questions at this point. And thanks very much for your for the thanks very much for. I'm not saying it to look for platitudes or anything like that. I'm saying it as it's my only way of proving that Genesis mean what they say. I mean, what's that saying? You never trust a guy who says trust me. I'm not asking you to trust me just because I said it. This is my story. It's my truth, and I appreciate you listening to it.
Thanks so much, David, not just for all of the insights around the data protection and security aspect, but also the kind of personal insights you shared. It is great, like, to be able to share that insight of how kind of security is embedded into the culture of everything that we do here at Genesis. So again, thank you again for that. Just a reminder, we will have